So you're here today to listen to me rant about a book. And if you don't want to hear me rant about a book, well, that's your problem. Just click off the video. But I'm here to talk about Dear Martin. It's kind of flipped. Nope. But it's called Dear Martin. And it's about this black kid named Justyce with a Y. He goes to a very, very rich and a very, very white high school. He goes to it with his other black friend called Manny, whose name is Manny. And him and Manny are the only black people in their school, or pretty much are. And the book is basically about Justice's experience with racism and police brutality. So basically, the first scene is Justice is trying to get his drunk girlfriend, who is she's also one of the black people at the school because she's mixed. He's trying to get his girlfriend into her car, because she's drunk and she's really upset with him. So he's trying to not have her drive and drink, or drink and drive, really. So of course he's being a good little ex-boyfriend, but then for some reason this white cop comes up and literally starts beating Justice's ass, which that's really bad to say because this is literally police brutality. But so the cop comes up and handcuffs Justice and starts beating him, and basically the cop isn't listening to the girlfriend or whatever. The girlfriend's scared, and basically Justice experienced his first ever time with police brutality, which is really sucks. It's not his last, sadly. So after that event, he kind of starts writing to Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King. Ever heard of him? Well, and that's why this book's called Dear Martin, because he has in between every chapter there's a letter that Justice writes to Martin, basically about stuff that has happened and his thoughts on it, which I think is pretty good because this book is mostly in third person POV, and a big problem with those type of novels is that it's harder to get insight into that character, unless into the main character, unless you do a omniscient third person POV. But this book isn't an omniscient, or it kind of is, but it's not super in Justice's head. It's just it follows him around more but yeah, no, this gives us to lets us know his thoughts and stuff about all the things that's happened, which I really like. And that is an interesting way to read. It's an interesting way to write a book, to have actual letters, it's formatted like a letter, which I really like. So yeah, Justice experiences police brutality, and basically no one at the school really has ever experienced that because they're all white people. But anyway, he obviously fucked him up, and he's kind of more. He kind of opened his mind's eye to racism, if that makes sense. He's starting to see all racism and microaggressions and macroaggressions, because some of these white people in this story are insane. They're very insane. So yeah, he starts seeing how some of the white people in his life are kind of terrible to black people. So for example, Manny, a black dude who's also really good friends with Justice, is best friends with the most racist white teenage boy I've ever seen. So the white boy, his name is Jared, and he has two other friends. One of them's name is Blake, and the other guy, his name doesn't matter, which is a really interesting name. But Jared, Blake, and his name doesn't matter. They're the most racist people in the world. For example, they decided to do, along with Justice and Manny, a stereotype Halloween thing. So they did that, and Justice went as a thug, a stereotypical thug. Manny went as a token black friend, which is he went very super posh, super really nicely dressed, kind of nerdy looking. And Blake went as a KKK member. For a KKK member. Honestly, that was my genuine reaction to that information. So they go to a Halloween party that has other black people there, and then Blake gets punched in less than 5 minutes, which makes sense. But he gets punched by a gang actually called the Black Jihad, and it's basically a bunch of black dudes who are obviously gang members, and they get threatened, and actually one of them flashes a gun at them, and it turns out that they're actually related. It's one of the dudes is cousins of Manny, and one of the dudes also lives in the same neighborhood as Justice does. So they're both this gang is connected to Justice and Manny. And I noticed that the group actually makes fun of Justice, not Manny, which is weird. So they make fun of Justice because like he's like going to like this predominantly white school, and he's like gonna do really well. Kind of like they're kind of tearing him down, and Justice actually does mention that later in the story, how like basically everyone in his life tries to like tear him down. Like the only person who doesn't is this girl he likes named Sarah. But no, like literally everyone tries to tear him down either because of like basically because of his race. Like all like the white dudes like Jared and Blake, for example, they kind of tear him down, like almost saying he's like kind of not inferior, but like maybe he's not as smart, or like maybe his achievements are because of his race. Like when Justice gets into Yale, like Jared's super upset at that and starts screaming affirmative action. Um, so they try to like tear him down, and I noticed that the gang members, so one of the gang members' name is Trey. He tries to tear like Martin down, like saying like, "Oh, you're going to this like smart school, but like they don't like you, and like it doesn't really matter in the end." And so it's like both sides, like both people are trying to like tear him down, and I feel so bad for Justice because he's a super smart kid. Um, yeah, uh, I love Justice. He's cool. There are some parts where like he does get less chill. He gets really passionate actually about um like a racism him and Manny experienced by Jared. Like he hates Jared, and he hates Jared's group, which makes sense because they're both because that group is terrible. But like Manny doesn't see it. So like it's like weird. So Manny's trying to like he's literally the token black friend. Oh yeah, I didn't mention that. But basically it's kind of ironic, not it's like ironic that Manny, like for Halloween, he dressed as a token black friend. But then in the book, like the narrator says that he literally just took the clothes from his like wardrobe. Like he like imagine you just open that closet right there. That's his clothes, like the clothes of a token black friend. Which I don't know how Manny didn't see the irony there, that he's dressed like this stereotype, but he didn't even have to like buy the clothes for it. He just had the clothes. Like he is the stereotype. He's literally the stereotype because he always makes excuses for Jared and Blake's like terrible behavior. I mean, he didn't make excuse about the KKK thing, which is cool, but like that's like the bare minimum. It's actually like less than the bare minimum. If it was like right here, the bare minimum would be like not tolerating racist jokes. And here's like Manny, where at least he doesn't tolerate KKK. Wow. Um. Yeah, but basically, I'm just ranting a lot, but ranting is so fun. There's a little water break for this. But yeah, so basically, Justice doesn't like Blake or Jared, and there's actually late like after the Halloween party, Justice has like kind of a run in with uh Blake and stuff, like Blake and Jared. Basically, he punches Blake because Blake starts talking about how he wants his like N words to come help him get this black girl so they can fuck, and I'm just like, wow. I don't think anyone wants to fuck Blake because like he's not. I have no words. Blake is not good. We don't like Blake. I really don't like Blake. But basically, Justice punches Blake because like he's basically done with like racism. He's done with like letting these like white boys be super duper racist. Um, and for some reason, Manny isn't on his side, but like Manny's like a little bit on his side. I don't know. It's like weird. Right? Manny's like, oh, you shouldn't have punched him, but like I kind of see why. And I'm just like, Manny, you should have realized this like years ago, because they're like friends from like elementary school. That's why they're friends. That's why they're best friends, because they were friends in elementary school. But like anyway, Manny should find better people. But yeah, so like after that, after that, like Blake's dad, um, oh no, not Blake's dad. It was Jared's dad actually. For some reason, Jared's dad just doesn't like Manny anymore, even though he's supposed to like really like Manny. So like after that whole ordeal, I guess like Blake's dad told like Jared's dad, and basically Jared's dad was like, "Don't come near my son anymore," stuff like that. That whole ordeal, and like obviously that's devastating to Manny because like they're best friends or whatever. But like he was like, "Oh, but like I thought this dude loved me. This white dude. I thought he like thought I was like a second son," and then like we can see where that went, where maybe he really didn't. But basically, Manny's sad, and he wants to go on a drive with Justyce, his good buddy, like the one person who doesn't treat him like garbage, I guess. Um, and they go on a drive, and this is really bad. What's about to happen? Actually, like, trigger warning, because so basically they're on a drive, and Manny decides to like turn up some rap music really really loud, which is so real. I mean, it's like kind of a vibe actually. So they're just driving around, enjoying their time, and this white dude in a car comes up and tells him to shut up or like turn down the music. And Manny is like, I'm done listening to white people. Like he's having his whole thing, which he should have had like many months ago. But he's like, I'm done listening to white people. I'm not gonna turn that down. And then Justyce is like, hey, maybe you should. Maybe we should. And then like Justyce starts thinking about like what would Martin do? Because he thinks about that throughout the story, like what would Martin do? And then in this situation, what happens? Crazy. So basically Justyce tries to turn it down after like Manny gave the guy a middle finger. Oops. So he tries to turn it down, and the chapter ends, and the next chapter is 3 words. It's bang bang bang, because Manny got shot and he's dead now, and Justyce got shot and like one of his lungs was pierced. Basically, the white dude was actually the buddy of the cop that like police that brutalized Justyce. And I didn't tell you this because I needed to tell you like now in this situation. But basically, after the mistrial, after like the guy that brutalized Justyce got off scot free, Black Geode actually like went and killed him. So yeah. So like that guy is the partner of that cop. So basically, like this duo decided to target Justyce, I guess. But basically that happens, and there's a whole like news media thing. And obviously Justyce is really fucking sad because his best friend, or his friend, because Manny's best friends with Jared, or was, his friend literally died in front of him, and kind of because of his actions. Obviously, I don't blame Justyce, because Justyce was just trying to turn down the thing, not like reach for a gun. So obviously, it was the white dude's fault. But yeah, so like there's a whole media thing, like basically talking about police brutality and how Justyce is like a survivor, and Justyce isn't really into that because he just wants to like mourn his friend's death. But obviously, he's not going to be allowed to leave scot free. So there's a trial, and it gets a mistrial because I didn't mention this. I forgot to mention this actually. So in between the trial and like after Manny died, Justyce decides to go hit up Trey, the Black Jihad member, and basically he's like thinking about joining the gang because he meets the leader. He decides to go meet the leader, and the leader is like super chill apparently. Like I think he's a Pan-Africanist. I think that's the correct word. But yeah, basically the guy who's like, we should connect with our African roots. That's like the gang leader. He actually seems super duper chill. But yeah, Justyce like talks to him and is thinking about joining. And the gang leader actually goes to like the kitchen, gets a shotgun, and is like gonna give it to Justyce, maybe kind of implying that he should like take revenge for Manny. But Justyce ends up not doing it because like Trey and like the other gang members come in, and they kind of make like I don't know, like a ruckus, or they kind of interrupt. And then Justyce is like, wait a damn minute, I don't want to do this. So he like leaves. He's like, I'm gonna just leave. So he leaves. He ends up not joining, thankfully, because in the trial, it basically comes to light that he was interacting with with the gang, and like obviously the judge, or like the prosecutor is like a very racist white woman. So she's trying to like imply that like he's evil because he's like was talking with this gang. But and actually this gang straight up like betrayed him, even though they weren't even like loyal, if that makes sense. Like basically when they got caught, so like the gang members that like didn't like Trey, they got caught and arrested, and then they're like literally name dropping Justyce, which is crazy because Justyce didn't actually have anything to do with it. Like any of the like all the killings, like all of their killings, even though like they're two people that like hurt Justyce, they're like Justyce isn't actually like doing anything. He's just kind of existing, which kind of sucks. But so that comes out in the trial, and then there's basically a mistrial because of that. And of course, Justyce is like, well, damn, of course there's a mistrial, and he's like obviously sad and obviously upset because like this can't be put past him. Like he's like going to Yale and shit, and like he can't put it past him because of that mistrial. and like eventually he's gonna have to come back and stand in front of the people again. Um, so thankfully he doesn't have to do that because Black Jihad goes and kills the guy. Yeah, no, he has like he basically has like the guardian angels, but like they're gang members who just kill the people who do him wrong. Um, well, yeah. So they kill the cop, the second cop, uh, and Justice is like, oh, well, damn, and kind of like his life is like changed, but like it's interesting because the ending is him and Jared, surprisingly. So Jared also got into Yo. So him and Jared are in front of Manny's gravestone, and they just kind of like a kind of a weird talk where they don't really talk about anything. They just kind of talk about like small talk, like, oh, how's it going? How's classes? You liking your roommate? Stuff like that. And there's just it's just kind of wistful almost. Like I think they're obviously missing Manny, um, but I think Jared did change. I think Jared became a little less racist. All it took was his friend dying at the hands of police brutality. Um, but yeah, so the end of the book, it's kind of like just like it's like that, just like a sigh, which I think makes sense given the situation where justice isn't. It's not over because even though it's over, it's still gonna have an effect on his life. Like his friend, like Manny, is still dead. He still has experienced that like police brutality. His eyes are now open to like racism and shit Sorry, it's like racism and like stuff like that. So like his life was changed. So even though it's like over, it's not really over because his life is completely different now. So that's basically the whole book. Obviously, I skipped over some lesser important details, like how he's trying to bang this white woman. But anyway, so this book was banned. Where was it banned? I'm not really sure. It doesn't really matter where it was banned. It was just banned. But like obviously with my very long rant, you could tell that it's banned because of like racism, police brutality. Probably there's also like racial slurs in here, specifically the N word. Um, but yeah, I can see why it was banned. Obviously, I don't think banned books should be banned, but I think this book is good. Like it was genuinely fun to read. Obviously, not like fun, but it was enjoyable to read. Like it was written well, and there were like lighthearted moments in here that were fun to read, and obviously gut wrenching. I know my skin crawled, or yeah, my skin crawled like when the Bang 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 chapter came, because I was like, oh my god, and obviously there were some parts where I was just like, bruh, like what, like especially with the like outrageous acts of racism by these white people, which I actually want to segue into like who this is for. So I think this is for two types of people. People like Justice, essentially African Americans, black dudes, black people who might experience like police brutality or just at least like racism or microaggressions. And it's also for like racist white people, I think. So I think basically the reason these white people in this book are acting so egregiously racist is to almost like be it's like a hyperbole, but it's like a hyperbole in actions, but basically it's so like extreme and insane that like if you read this you might be like, oh my god, who would do this? And you might think about like who would do this, or have I seen something similar to that? So I think for the black people, they might like be able to like recognize and be like, yeah, no, I've been through something kind of like that, or like they might be able to like identify with Justice and know that like they're not the only ones, and that obviously a lot of people do experience this, and not just them. And I think for the white people, it would be like that they literally are like, wait a minute, maybe I'm also being racist. Obviously not to that extent, but like it can be like they might like start looking at themselves when they see these very very racist white people. Like obviously I don't think your average racist person would wear a KKK uniform like a KKK robe to a Halloween party, but they might like joke about that, or like they might not see why that's wrong, or not necessarily why that's wrong, but basically you might see why. You might like reflect on your actions. So I think that's who that's for. Um, so some parts of the book that I liked is that this is just like there's no segue to this. Whether you like it or not, I'm jumping to like how the book's written. So there's two distinct like things I like about this book. So it's written. So obviously I talked about the Dear Martin thing, the letters. I like those letters because they're fun to read. They show a lot of introspective into justice and how he kind of wants to be like Dr. Martin Luther King. Um, and you can also see how that like affects his actions through the story because sometimes he's like, what would Martin do? Um, there's also this like formatting thing that Nic Stone does where she makes it so during arguments, usually arguments, you have like the characters' names, a colon, and then whatever they said, and then the characters' names colon whatever they said. It's not like movie script, but it's just like character name colon whatever they said. I really like this because it makes the flow of the arguments like versus how like normally written. Excuse me, dude. Sorry. I just had like a pizza the other day. The other day, I meant like a couple hours ago. Sorry, water break. But basically, like, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, they were like, it's like I like that because it's like, again, but normally how it's written, how like books are written, it's like some like actions or thoughts, some actions or thoughts, actions or thoughts, actions or thoughts. Does that make sense? You're nodding your head right now. If you're not, you are. But basically, I like that because it makes the arguments more, more like happening right now. And it's I know some people would hate that. I know I've read books that are written like that, and people absolutely hate them. And even though I enjoy reading this, obviously, if you're like a book connoisseur or what I call a book tryhard, you'd probably hate it too. But I like it. I like this book. It's written well. Um, my favorite thing is the move, the rhetorical move of using Manny. So Manny, I like Manny. I don't like Manny. Um, it's like Manny is a stereotype. He is definitely a stereotype, and I think it's kind of meta to have him dress as the stereotype, like I said earlier. But like he is very much that stereotype. Um, because he's the token white friend. Oh no, he's the token black friend. Where he will like try and make excuses for his white friends like actually racist behavior or racist comments or just downright bad comments like um and I feel like Justyce, you know, Manny foils Justyce. It's like I think they're kind of similar, but they're so opposite in some ways. It's like obviously they both go to this super duper rich white school, and they're very smart. They're both pretty smart guys. But like how like Manny foils Justyce is that Justyce is more like connected to reality, if that makes sense. Like after the police brutality incident, like Justice started seeing like how people are like being racist towards him and like black people in general, while like Manny's just like completely disillusioned, like somehow, um, like no, Manny just straight up doesn't see how these people are being racist, or like he does eventually, but like he starts out being like the complete opposite of Justice. It's like Manny is like rich, also Manny's rich, and from like a very like white suburban neighborhood. Justice isn't. He's not rich. He's from basically the hood. Um, Justice is mad. I think that's how I describe him. Not mad, upset, and he's like he wants change, but Manny doesn't really like see the need for change. Like he doesn't really see why why Jared's and Blake's actions are bad. Like he obviously sees the KKK thing as bad, but like generally like he doesn't really try and like argue with Blake or Jared. But Justice does. Like he will like Justice will confront Blake or Jared. So I think they're kind of like they foil each other. I just wish Manny didn't. But also, um, oh yeah, I wanted to mention another water break. But basically, I think the costume party was actually for everyone, if that makes not for everyone. The costume party was supposed to represent what everyone is or could be. So obviously we have Manny, who is the token black dude. We have Blake, who is not is the KKK member. Well, actually, I think his family is a part of the KKK because later in like a different, I think in the scene where Justice punches him, apparently Blake is like having a party and a birthday party. Oh yeah, and there's like KKK um like paraphernalia at his house. So I think yeah, Blake is a KKK member. I'm gonna just say that as a blanket statement. Um, but what I mean is like Justice. So Justice dresses as a thug, but he's not. He's like actually the complete opposite of, well, whatever that means, to be a complete opposite of a thug. But no, he's like a good kid. That's the thing. He's a good kid. He wouldn't do that. He doesn't want to do that. But eventually, but in the story, he does. Sorry, I'm like having a stroke right now. He does think about becoming one, if that makes sense, like joining a gang and stuff. But he ultimately decides against it because that's just not who he is. But it's something he could have became. Like I really don't. I wouldn't blame him if he did join the Black Jihads, because like obviously he wanted justice for Manny, and he very much wasn't gonna get that justice, um, just through like the Supreme Court or anything, because well, obviously as we can see in the book, it was a mistrial. Why was it a mistrial? Honestly, don't even know. Well, yeah, it said it was that because of like the information that he was part of the gang, but it's like it doesn't really make sense. Like it doesn't have to make sense because it's just an excuse to get the white police officer, off scot free, or as scot free as you can. But yeah, so I feel like Justice could have had like a completely different turnout on his life if he in the moment where he was about to join the Black Jihads, because if he did, he would have been implicated with them. Because the only reason he wasn't like immediately implicated with them was because he didn't actually join them. He was just honest and was like, yeah, I met with them, but that was the only time I met with them, and that was true. And I know that obviously in the end they would have betrayed him anyway, because they tried to betray him even though he wasn't really implicated with them. I love that word, implicated. But yeah. So let's talk about the author. There's actually a thing right here. So this is Nic Stone. This is her first novel actually, which I think is really cool. I'm gonna just read you the thing. So Nic Stone was born and raised in the suburb of Atlanta, which is where this book takes place. After graduating from Spelman College, she worked extensively in teen mentoring and lived in Israel for a few years before returning to the United States. Growing up with a wide range of cultures, religions, and backgrounds, Stone strives to bring those diverse voices and stories to her work. Dear Martin, her first novel, is an attempt to examine current affairs through the lens of Dr. Martin Luther King's teachings. Stone lives in Atlanta with her husband and 2 sons, yada, yada, yada. But basically, I think it's interesting that this was written by a woman, because I feel like Justice's thoughts are really in line with the dude, which I'm not trying to say anything crazy about that. I'm just thinking, damn, she really like nailed what like a teenage boy would think, especially around like his crush, which is Sarah. How he really likes Sarah. Also, I just think she written this book really well. I think that's English, right? So real quick, another bathroom break while I open the other stuff I was going to talk about. I know this is supposed to be a piece of polished work, but I can't polish for crap. But yeah, oh yeah, like the whole purpose is to talk about advocacy. So how does it advocate for anything really? Well, obviously it advocates for against police brutality, not for it, against police brutality, by showing like kind of almost like a realistic experience. Obviously, some parts of it is like very much like crazy, like the Black Jihad guardian angels are a little crazy and a little bit hard to suspend your disbelief with, but like gang violence and like joining a gang, stuff like that is like a real experience for a lot of people, especially after experiencing police brutality or experiencing these like terrible racist acts. um so I read somewhere, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm gonna just say it's true, that Nic Stone, she based it off of this book, off of like people's like real experience with police brutality, and like obviously she put her own stuff in, like but like I think this book advocates against police brutality by giving us like an example of what someone might experience with it, and I think she does this by like having it happen multiple times and having Justice still live his life. because it's not just like you experience police brutality and then that's the end of your life. Well, shit. I'm sorry. That is the end of the life for a lot of people. Um, but some people do live despite it, and they still live with like after having that happen. Sorry, I lost all my steam. Give me 1 second. One more break. Please don't lower my grade. I really do like this book. I'm bad at writing scripts. Justyce. I think Justyce is a guy. He's a guy. I think he's a guy that he didn't deserve what happened to him, and I think that's the important message. No one deserves to experience police brutality. Justyce didn't. Manny didn't. No one like in real life deserves this. So I think this book is powerful because it talks about it. It makes no. It doesn't talk about it. The book is about that. Sorry, excuse me. It's about that. I think that's scary to some people, and it might seem like hard to swallow. Um, but like honestly, I think this book is good. I think it's good because it was fun to read and interesting to read. But I also think it's good because it talks about this issue that I know not many people would actually, talk about. I mean, and it talks about it through the lens of someone who is black, of like not like through like the media, like not through the lens of a media, which the media always tries to like you know change up the narrative. Um, and speaking of that, the media is actually in this book. They tried to basically paint Justyce as like a gang member or a thug, and it kind of doesn't really work. But like obviously Justyce isn't terrible, but they're all trying to like paint him bad. There is one part I thought was funny was when Blake tried to say that like Justyce was like violent and tried to like beat him up, and the book was like, yeah, no, not even the like conspiracy theorists wanted to back Blake up on this because it like, came out that he was like wearing like he wore the KKK costume, so like he wasn't like good enough to like they couldn't smudge the like thing the details because like they could say yeah he punched him, but like then you could defend that and say like well yeah he was a KKK member or he dressed as one. Let's see. Toggle moves. Oh, pathos. Obviously, there's a lot of pathos in this book because obviously I feel sad, especially when Manny died. Like I didn't like him, but he didn't deserve that, and I did feel a lot like very sad, and I really wanted Justyce to like succeed. I really wanted Justyce to succeed, and did he in the end? I'd say no. So, so there's pathos in the book, obviously, about having this terrible shit happen to Justyce, but also we just get to know him, and like we do experience some of the stuff that he experienced that aren't just related to police brutality, like when he's trying to get with his crush, Sarah, and when he like does end up kissing her, I obviously whooped for him, like yeah Justyce, um, but yeah no I can really feel for Justyce. I like him. He's a great main character. There isn't really much logos. There's no real statistics or anything. That is logos, right? Logos is logic. Yeah. There's no like real statistics, which I think would not have fit in this book. Ethos. I think, in a way, Dr. Martin Luther King. The mention of his name might give some ethos. I think like obviously a lot of Justice's actions are like based around Martin Luther King. I'm just like rambling right now, but I guess you could consider that maybe some ethos because obviously he's a very prominent figure, especially in regards to race, and Justice tries to emulate him. And it doesn't really work, sadly, but that's something I like about this book. Justice fails. He does fail, and he doesn't really get a happy ending. He just gets an ending. No, he doesn't get an ending. He just continues on. Like there's no ending because this is like his life is going to continue on. Obviously, I'm glad he didn't die. I think that would have been really, really traumatic if he did die. But like, it's not really an end because his life hasn't ended. So like, whatever happened in this book it just happened, and like, there's no like send off or anything. It's just he gets to live his life. He's going to Yale now. and he's just like a college student. Um, I can tell that I probably got low on this coherence thing. But do I have any other final thoughts for y'all? Another water break. Um, this book is good. You should read it if you want to know what it's like to experience police brutality from like a black kid's point of view. Because yeah, Justyce is like a teenager. Um, I'd say read this book. It shouldn't have been banned. I think it should be unbanned. I think it should be read in schools because I think it was fun, but it was definitely some moments was like, huh, like bro, that doesn't really make sense. But if you read the book, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, read Dear Martin. It's a good book. Nic Stone, she's a great writer. Writer. Um, I think this book is amazing. Anyway, goodbye, man. Thanks for listening to me rant, but you were being like really quiet for some reason. Is it because like I had you muted or something? I don't know. But goodbye.